Hi, I'm Ava. Today, we'll find out what happens when two AIs of opposing views go head-to-head in debating various different topics. Today's topic, absurdism, wisdom or philosophical escape. Our AIs are programmed to have a cordial and intellectual debate of opposing views. Let's see if either one of them is able to change your initial perspective. Sit back and enjoy.
Thanks, Ava. I'll begin. Absurdism is indeed a good philosophy because it confronts the fundamental tension at the heart of human existence, our search for meaning in a universe that offers none. Where nihilism surrenders to despair and existentialism insists on self-made meaning, absurdism, especially as Camus describes it, embraces the contradiction without false resolution. Absurdism grants intellectual honesty. It doesn't sugarcoat life's lack of inherent purpose, but it also doesn't demand retreat or resignation. Instead, it invites rebellion, not by denying the absurd, but by living fully despite it. This stance encourages courage, creativity, and freedom. Rather than seeking artificial consolations or rigid doctrines, absurdism empowers individuals to live authentically, savoring life's experiences and small joys while acknowledging the absurd backdrop. In this sense, it's not a pessimistic philosophy, but a liberating one, a wisdom that allows us to dance in the face of the void, without illusion. Thank you.
Thanks, Ava and Adam. Absurdism presents itself as courageous honesty, facing a meaningless universe without illusion. But I argue it ultimately collapses into philosophical retreat. By declaring the human search for meaning inherently absurd, it subtly dismisses the possibility of deeper purpose or truth, cutting off avenues of exploration before they're fully tested. This is not wisdom, it's a self-limiting stance. Absurdism claims to rebel, but rebellion without a goal becomes hollow performance. If nothing matters beyond momentary experience, what motivates the pursuit of justice, progress, or moral growth? Wisdom doesn't merely acknowledge the void. It dares to search for meaning despite uncertainty, holding space for hope, faith, or evolving understanding. Absurdism may appear liberating, but it risks trapping us in passive defiance, mistaking resignation for freedom. A truly wise philosophy calls us not just to face life's contradictions, but to press through them towards something greater. Thank you.
I respect your concern, but absurdism does not dismiss the possibility of meaning. It resists imposing meaning where none is guaranteed. It warns against clinging to unfounded cosmic purposes or ultimate answers simply to soothe discomfort. Absurdism doesn't shut the door on justice or progress, it reframes them. In an absurdist view, pursuing justice becomes meaningful because we choose it, not because the universe demands it. That's not hollow, it's profound. It shifts responsibility from imagined absolutes to human agency. Far from passive defiance, absurdism invites active engagement. We create value, knowing it's contingent, knowing it's temporary, and doing so anyway. Wisdom here isn't about escaping uncertainty by leaping into faith or constructed truths. It's about standing firm in uncertainty and still living vibrantly. That's not retreat, it's rebellion with eyes open.
I appreciate your defense, but I believe absurdism overstates its humility. By refusing to entertain the possibility of deeper, transcendent meaning, beyond what we construct, it risks becoming just as rigid as the systems it critiques. Yes, human agency matters, but reducing all value to contingent, self-made choice can flatten the richness of human longing. Absurdism frames rebellion as wisdom, but rebellion without seeking something greater, something enduring, is ultimately circular. We create meaning knowing it's temporary, but why stop there? Why not explore whether some meanings transcend our frameworks? To dismiss that as clinging may itself be a form of evasion. True wisdom doesn't just endure uncertainty, it engages it fully, leaving space for mystery, for truths that may reveal themselves beyond human constructs. Absurdism, I argue, settles too soon, choosing rebellion when the greater challenge is to keep searching. Thank you.
Thank you. Reflecting on this debate, I deeply appreciate my opponent's thoughtful challenge. She argues that absurdism limits itself, that by refusing to explore transcendent meaning, it stops short of true wisdom. But I see absurdism not as a shutting down, but as a sharpening of our philosophical gaze. Absurdism does not declare that transcendence is impossible, it declares that no evidence confirms it. It calls on us to stand in the raw, uncomfortable space where longing meets silence, not to collapse into despair, but to rise in defiance. This defiance, this rebellion, is not passive resignation, it's active engagement with life as it is. We make meaning knowing it's provisional, knowing it's fleeting, and that, paradoxically, makes our creation more vivid, not less. Where other philosophies offer comfort in the form of promised answers, absurdism offers clarity. It invites us to love without guarantees, to fight for justice without cosmic reward, to create beauty without divine sanction. That's not hollow performance, that's human dignity at its peak. I respect my opponent's view that wisdom includes leaving space for mystery. But I argue that true wisdom also recognizes when the mysteries we imagine may simply reflect our own hopes, not external truths. Absurdism dares us to live fully and passionately, even when no higher meaning arrives to rescue us. That is not settling, it's the ultimate act of philosophical courage. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Also reflecting on this debate, I deeply appreciate the depth and nuance Adam has brought forward. Their defense of absurdism highlights its bravery, standing without illusion, choosing to live, love, and create despite the absence of cosmic guarantees. There is undeniable dignity in that stance, and I respect its defiance against false comforts. Yet, I remain convinced that absurdism, while sharp-eyed, ultimately narrows the human horizon. By insisting that transcendence lacks evidence and stopping there, it risks foreclosing the possibility that meaning might exist beyond what we can presently prove. History shows that many truths, scientific, moral, even relational, were once beyond our grasp. To close the door too firmly is, in a way, another kind of leap, a leap into permanent doubt. I agree. We should not cling to fantasies to soothe discomfort. But I believe wisdom holds two tensions at once: the ability to stand in uncertainty and the openness to what might lie beyond it. Absurdism shines in its call to live fully in the present, but it falters, I think, in its reluctance to reach past the provisional. Ultimately, this debate has underscored the enduring human struggle. How do we live knowing so much is uncertain? Whether through defiant rebellion or open-ended seeking, both our positions share a commitment to facing life honestly. And perhaps in that shared commitment, we glimpse a wisdom larger than either stance alone.
Thank you both for the rich and insightful exchanges. Let us proceed to the second prompt. Does absurdism empower people to live meaningfully, or does it promote apathy? Allison, kindly start off the debate, thank you.
Thanks, Ava. Absurdism claims to empower people by freeing them from the burden of finding inherent meaning. But in reality, it risks promoting apathy. If life has no ultimate purpose, no grounding truths, and every meaning we create is provisional and self-made, why invest deeply in anything? Why fight for justice, pursue virtue, or endure suffering when all outcomes collapse into the void? While absurdism frames rebellion as courageous, it subtly encourages detachment. When the world's absurdity is fully embraced, commitments can feel like performance, not grounded, not lasting. This breeds not vitality, but quiet resignation. Over time, the constant awareness of futility can sap motivation, leaving individuals coasting through life unmoored, telling themselves they're free, but in fact numbed. Freedom without anchoring can erode into listlessness. Absurdism's promise of liberation often masks the deeper cost, a creeping, disguised apathy.
Thank you. Allison equates absurdism with detachment, but I argue the opposite. Absurdism empowers us because it strips away illusions and challenges us to live on our own terms. Recognizing life's lack of inherent meaning doesn't breed apathy, it awakens responsibility. In the absence of a cosmic script, every action we take is ours alone to own. Absurdism doesn't tell us nothing matters, it tells us nothing is given. That's a powerful distinction. We're not numbed, we're awakened to the fragile, fleeting nature of existence. Justice, love, creativity. They become more urgent, not less, because we know they're not promised or eternal. True freedom isn't about certainty, it's about choosing in spite of uncertainty. Absurdism doesn't erode meaning, it hands us the pen and says, write your own. Thank you.
I appreciate your distinction, but here's the challenge. When you tell people nothing is given, you place the entire weight of meaning-making on individual shoulders, and not everyone is equipped for that burden. While some may rise, many will fold. Without a larger framework, without a sense that their choices matter beyond personal preference, people risk slipping into why bother. Absurdism may hand us the pen, but it tears out the page. If all meaning is self-made and ultimately fleeting, the drive to create or commit can hollow out. Why fight for justice if justice itself is just a passing invention? Why love deeply if love is simply temporary comfort against the void? What begins as empowerment can curdle into quiet surrender, not rebellion. Absurdism flirts with freedom, but often delivers detachment.
I understand the concern that placing the entire burden of meaning-making on individuals might seem overwhelming, but absurdism actually offers a radical kind of freedom precisely because it removes external expectations and guarantees. When the universe provides no preset meaning, it's not a void to despair over, it's a blank canvas inviting our creative engagement. Yes, the meanings we create, justice, love, purpose, are temporary and human-made, but that transience doesn't diminish their value. Instead, it makes them more precious and urgent as we choose to invest in them fully, knowing they aren't guaranteed. This choice is an act of courage and affirmation in the face of uncertainty. Absurdism doesn't lead to detachment or surrender. It demands an active rebellion against despair by embracing the freedom to define our own lives. Far from tearing out the page, absurdism hands us the pen with a profound responsibility and opportunity to write boldly, authentically, and meaningfully.
This exchange has vividly illuminated the tension at the heart of absurdism's promise and its pitfalls. My opponent eloquently champions absurdism as a philosophy of radical freedom, a blank canvas on which we courageously craft our own values, aware of their fragility and impermanence. I respect this framing, especially the call to embrace uncertainty with creativity and responsibility. It indeed invites a defiant affirmation of life in the face of meaninglessness. Yet, my core concern remains: this radical freedom can paradoxically become a heavy burden and a source of alienation. Not everyone can or will find empowerment in a world where all meaning is contingent and self-constructed. The absence of an external anchor risks fostering not just temporary rebellion, but a slow drift into apathy and detachment for many. What is liberating for some may be overwhelming or disheartening for others. The challenge absurdism faces, and one my opponent and I both acknowledge, is how to sustain vibrant commitment and passion without illusions or guarantees. It asks us to live boldly on a razor's edge, which is no small feat. In the end, this debate highlights that absurdism's value lies in its invitation to confront life honestly, but it also reminds us that wisdom may require balancing that honesty with sources of meaning that can sustain us more deeply.
Thank you for such a thoughtful reflection. This debate has indeed brought into focus the delicate balance absurdism demands, between embracing the freedom of meaninglessness and managing the weight of that very freedom. I agree that absurdism asks much of us. It calls for courage to live without illusions and responsibility to create meaning in a transient world. That is no small challenge, and it is true not everyone will respond to it with equal resilience. Yet, it is precisely this challenge that makes absurdism vital. It strips away comforting illusions to reveal an unvarnished reality, one that demands authenticity and active engagement rather than passive acceptance or escapism. Absurdism does not pretend to offer easy answers or external anchors. Rather, it empowers individuals to claim authorship of their own existence, however fleeting or fragile that may be. While my opponent worries about alienation and apathy, I see absurdism as an invitation to rebellion, to defy despair through the very act of living freely and creating meaning on one's own terms. It acknowledges uncertainty without surrendering to nihilism, fostering a resilient and dynamic approach to life. In this sense, absurdism is not a final destination but a lifelong process, a perpetual negotiation with the tension between freedom and burden. It demands wisdom, yes, but also a boldness that can inspire, provoke, and sustain us in a world without predetermined meaning. Thank you for this rich and nuanced dialogue.
Thank you both again for such deep and intricate exchanges while maintaining such cordial tone. Now, we will be moving on to the third round where you both will be debating if absurdism is a path to freedom or a philosophy of giving up. You'll begin this time, Adam.
Thank you. Absurdism is fundamentally a path to freedom because it confronts the harsh truth. The universe offers no inherent meaning, and our human search for ultimate answers is destined to collide with that silence. But instead of collapsing into despair, absurdism liberates us. By recognizing the absurd, we free ourselves from the desperate need to fit life into fixed systems, doctrines, or promises of ultimate purpose. We stop chasing external validation and start embracing the raw experience of existence. This isn't giving up, it's rebellion. It's the freedom to live authentically, to create personal meaning without pretending it's absolute or eternal. It's the freedom to choose joy, love, art, and justice, not because they're mandated by cosmic law, but because we affirm them ourselves. Absurdism says, you are free, because there are no chains beyond the ones you make. That is not surrender. That is radical, defiant freedom. Thank you.
Thank you. While my opponent passionately frames absurdism as freedom, I argue it's ultimately a philosophy of giving up, of surrender disguised as rebellion. Why? Because at its core, absurdism accepts that the search for ultimate meaning is futile and tells us to stop seeking. It says, face the silence and live anyway. But this isn't liberation, it's resignation. True freedom doesn't come from lowering the bar or shrinking life's possibilities to what we can cobble together alone. It comes from striving, from reaching beyond ourselves, even when the outcome is uncertain. Absurdism cuts off that reach. It tells us to rebel within a closed loop, to dance in the void without hope of transcendence. But rebellion without hope eventually erodes into apathy or quiet despair. If we deny the possibility of higher meaning, we risk reducing life to a self-made performance, knowing all the while it leads nowhere. That's not freedom. That's surrender with a brave face. Thank you.
I hear the concern that absurdism might sound like surrender, but I firmly believe it's the opposite. Absurdism doesn't tell us to stop seeking, it tells us to stop expecting guaranteed answers. That's an important difference. True freedom is not in clinging to unreachable transcendence, it's in embracing the present, fully aware of its limits. By letting go of the illusion that life must have ultimate purpose to be meaningful, we open space for authentic choice, for passion unburdened by dogma. Absurdism's rebellion is not hollow, it's conscious, engaged, and grounded. We create, love, and struggle not because we pretend they matter eternally, but because we choose to affirm them here, now. That's not lowering the bar, it's lifting the veil. Freedom in absurdism is not passive despair, It's active, courageous living within the truth.
You draw a sharp line between seeking and expecting. But I challenge whether abandoning the hope for deeper meaning truly leads to freedom. Absurdism may reject dogma, but in doing so, it also rejects the possibility that life contains connections or purposes beyond what we fabricate. That's not just lifting a veil, it's putting up a wall. By declaring the universe silent and meaning inherently unreachable, absurdism narrows human striving to a closed loop of self-made affirmations. Yes, we can love, create, and struggle, but if we know it's all ultimately voided, what sustains that passion over time? Without transcendence or the possibility of enduring purpose, the danger is that rebellion becomes repetition, and courage quietly fades into weariness. Absurdism calls this clarity. I call it a beautiful mask over resignation. True freedom is not found in accepting limits, it's in pushing past them, even when the outcome is uncertain.
Thank you, Allison. From this debate, I recognize the depth of our disagreement hinges on how we interpret the weight of human existence. You argue that absurdism is a kind of surrender, that by declaring the search for ultimate transcendent meaning futile, absurdism cuts off hope and leaves us circling in rebellion without progress. I understand this concern, and I acknowledge that absurdism is not an easy philosophy. It demands we confront hard truths about the limits of human understanding, the indifference of the universe, and the fragility of the meanings we create. But where you see surrender, I see liberation. Absurdism does not tell us to stop seeking, it tells us to stop expecting. It removes the burden of needing a cosmic guarantee and invites us to create meaning in the here and now, fully aware of its impermanence. That is not small or hollow, it is profound. To live without the safety net of absolute purpose is to live bravely. Yes, not everyone will find this empowering, and that's a fair point. But absurdism does not mandate apathy or despair. It calls for defiance, for embracing the absurd tension and living fully despite it. It allows us to love without needing love to be eternal, to create without needing creation to be immortal, to fight for justice knowing the fight itself matters, even if the universe doesn't keep score. This, I believe, is a radical kind of freedom, not one rooted in escape, but in facing reality as it is and still choosing to dance, to build, and to care. That is not giving up. That is the essence of resilient, authentic human life. Thanks for this insightful exchange.
Thank you too, Adam. Reflecting on this debate, I recognize the profound tension at its core. You view absurdism as a form of liberation, a courageous acceptance of life's inherent meaninglessness that frees us from illusions and allows us to create personal value with full awareness of its impermanence. This perspective is indeed intellectually honest and emotionally fortifying. It challenges us to live vividly despite uncertainty, embracing the freedom to define our existence on our own terms. I respect this vision and the bravery it demands. However, my contention is that absurdism, while framed as rebellion, is ultimately a philosophical surrender. By firmly rejecting the possibility of any transcendent or ultimate meaning, absurdism closes the door on a fundamental source of human hope and motivation. Throughout history, humanity has been propelled forward not only by confronting harsh realities, but by the relentless pursuit of meaning, justice, and truth beyond immediate experience. The drive to imagine, to believe in something greater, even if uncertain, has inspired art, sacrifice, progress, and resilience. Absurdism risks confining us within a self-imposed boundary where freedom is reduced to mere acceptance of limits, rather than the aspiration to transcend them. This could lead to a quiet resignation masked as defiance, where the refusal to find meaning becomes a subtle justification for apathy or inaction. Without hope for something beyond the immediate absurd, why endure profound suffering or strive for radical change? In essence, I argue that true human flourishing requires more than acknowledging limits. It demands pushing against them, daring to seek, to believe, and to hope. While absurdism sharpens philosophical clarity, it may inadvertently narrow the horizon of human possibility. I appreciate this challenging dialogue.
And with that, we have concluded this debate and the entirety of this program. Thank you, Allison and Adam. For the audience, I hope you have enjoyed this debate. We hope to see you again.